It was August 24th of 2018 when I had on my show Jordan Brady, who at the time was the head coach of the Wisconsin Herd, the G League affiliate of the Milwaukee Bucks. Flash forward, it's now August of 2024. 6 years later, I'm bringing back on Jordan Brady, who's now the director of player development at BYU for the men's basketball program. Such an awesome interview, a great opportunity to learn from a man who has been through, the playing career at the professional level. He's been through the coaching career at the professional level. Now he's coaching on the player development side at a collegiate level at a program like BYU. And we're going to learn about some of the experiences he's had. So part of this interview is just catching up with him and learning about what's happened since our interview 6 years ago. Some of the things he's learned, the players he's been around, the games that he experienced, and the life lessons he's learned. And we'll see what he was doing, some of the things that he did, the transitions out of basketball and back into basketball. But we're also going to learn about what he's going to be doing at BYU. What does player development mean? What does that entail? What is he going to be doing in his role? And what's he excited for? What's the state of BYU men's basketball right now with the coaching change? And why he believes it's in a fantastic spot, like better than it's ever been. So we're excited to get to know more about Jordan. And for those who didn't get the chance to hear me 6 years ago, because you're on the platform now, but weren't back then because the show was relatively small back then, take a listen to episode 75, because what you'll learn is his journey from being a junior college basketball player to playing at the Division I level, played in the G League. He played professionally. The guy knows what he's doing, and he was able to coach. So you'll get to learn more about his journey as a player and a coach. And now we get to do a little bit of a follow-up. Super exciting opportunity. So make sure you guys tap in. Check this one out. This is the Gametime Guru. So
what time is it? Game time!
This is the Gametime Guru podcast, where I interview sports figures from all over the world to help deliver a panoramic view on sports. So whether you're a former athlete, one of the crazies, or simply a casual sports fan, this is the perfect show for you as we peel back the curtains and learn from our guests every single week. I'm your host, Shane Larson, and I'm helping you see sports through a different lens. What's up, everybody? Welcome out to another episode of the Gametime Guru podcast. Shane Larson here, host of the show. Super special opportunity. As you guys heard in the introduction, we're doing a little bit of a circle back almost 6 years later from the first time that I interviewed our guest. I mean, he was on episode 75 of the podcast. We are now in the 360s of the podcast, and it's just been a cool opportunity to kind of circle back with him. There's some mutual connections here that I have, not only from a family standpoint, but from a friendship standpoint, friends with his brother, but also I'm friends with him because he's been on my show. And so it's really cool to kind of see where he's at now. And his name is Jordan Brady. He is the director of player development for BYU men's basketball. And we're going to be chatting with him as he had an opportunity to go through the G League, having some coaching experience there, and now having a chance to take his talents to Provo, not necessarily South Beach, like LeBron said. It's Provo, Utah. But we'll get to chat with him a little bit more. So Jordan, thanks for joining the show, man.
Appreciate it. And Shane, congratulations, man. The sounds like the show's doing really well.
I appreciate it, man. And to that point, thanks to all the guests like yourself, thanks to all the listeners and anybody who's ever shared the podcast. I mean, there's a reason now it's been downloaded in 182 countries in all 50 states. It's because of people like yourself. So I'd encourage you guys with that. If you're listening to this podcast, hey, share it with a friend or a family member. If it's your first time listening, welcome aboard and hit that subscribe button, because we'll be coming to you every week with new interviews. But yeah, thank you, Jordan. It's been a fun journey, and you were at the beginning stages, the first year or so of it. So super cool. Let's talk. The last time I had you on the show, at that point, you were the head coach of the Wisconsin Herd, the G League affiliate for the Milwaukee Bucks. And I've always kind of kept an eye on you since then, just kind of seeing how the journey was going. But if we could flash back just a little bit, Jordan, I'd love to kind of get your, a rundown of what happened and transpired in your coaching journey since then, and maybe like a life lesson that you've learned. So with Wisconsin, and then what happened where you went from that time, and what you were able to take away from that experience.
Yeah, sure. Man, Wisconsin, Milwaukee, that seems like it's been forever ago, but it's also seems like it's just been last year in some ways. But a lot learned since then, a lot learned during that experience. And I don't remember exactly. I think it was at the beginning of my tenure there in Milwaukee when we caught up on the podcast. And so Yeah, man, first head coaching opportunity in professional basketball. So definitely learned a lot that applies not only to the position that I'm in now, but just everything that I've done in the basketball journey since then and in life. So, you know, I'll start here. The last 2 seasons I've actually spent out of basketball. I've been working and doing some things in the tech industry, which has been really awesome. And a lot of things that I learned there and a lot of things that I've learned in coaching really applied to that. But the number one thing that I learned over those 2 years is really just how valuable all of these coaching opportunities are. And so, I had a great opportunity to transition into coaching after my playing career, and it moved, pretty well for me. I mean, for my first 5 years as an assistant coach in the G League, I was making good progress and steady progress in the profession, and then got that opportunity to be a head coach. And so for me, things were kind of going as I just felt like they should. I had a lot of really good examples and mentors that I saw make that journey and had provided me with a lot of insight, but you're never quite prepared for when you get that first time where those opportunities are taken away. And so that is what happened at the end of my tenure in Milwaukee. I was able to transition after that into a head coaching position over in Hong Kong. So that ended up being the COVID season. So we spent about a half a season living and coaching in Hong Kong in the ASEAN Basketball League, which was a fantastic experience. But it just got cut short. And then I spent 1 year out and then was able to have an opportunity as an assistant coach with the Chicago Bulls G League team. I went over and a good friend of mine, a guy that played for the Idaho Stampede when I was an assistant for them, got the head coaching job there, Henry Domerson, and he gave me a call and said that he would like me to come out there with him and just wanted some head coaching experience and somebody that he could trust on his staff. And so I was able to go out there with him for a season, which was fantastic because, again, it was my first opportunity back in basketball after having been a head coach. And so I felt like I was a much better assistant coach after having had that head coaching experience. And it was really cool for me to see Henry be able to learn and grow in that first year as a head coach. And he has done a fantastic job. He did 3 years there and is now an assistant coach and on the Chicago Bulls coaching staff as of this year. So it's been really cool to see his growth in that coaching industry as well. But after I did the year in Chicago, I took a step back and, like I said, did the 2 years in the tech industry and was a fantastic opportunity. And a lot of what I've learned there has helped prepare me for this opportunity at BYU. So quick summary there, but man, a lot of lessons learned and just really grateful for the opportunity. Definitely, I always appreciated the opportunities. I knew that what I had was special. Not everybody gets to do what I was able to do at the levels that I was able to do it at. And, but you have a different appreciation and a different humility for it after you've spent a year or two out, for sure.
Totally. And it's cool because your journey's unique, man. Like it's a little bit of here, a break in between. I'm sure it gives you a little bit of perspective and an appreciation, like you said, just of everything that you're learning along the way. I do have a question on, the G League in general. The G League has grown, like just the whole developmental system for the NBA in America has grown substantially. I at least I feel, I mean, from just the talent level, the pay structures have changed a little bit to where, it feels like they're trying to keep their players stateside more so than going overseas and playing in these leagues overseas all the time. That they're getting a little bit more competitive with the pay, two-way contracts, this, that, and the third. And I'm just curious, like your thoughts on the evolution of the G League from the time that, the Stampede days for you, and then like maybe now in the last 5 to 10 years of how the G League's evolved.
Yeah, I mean, I can even go back a little bit further. I mean, I played in the G League when there were 12 G League teams. We played 2/3 of our schedule was against our division. We played the same 3 teams like 6 to 8 times over the course of a G League season, or I'm sorry, the same 4 teams. And so there wasn't the competitive diversity as far as league wide goes when I first started playing. Obviously, the travel has improved dramatically. The resources for the G League have improved. Now with, I think this next year will be the first season where all 30 NBA teams have their own single affiliate, with the Phoenix Suns bringing theirs back. So, you include the backing of the single affiliate to the G League, and you get a much more professional experience. And so, yeah, I mean, the growth has really just been exponential since I started playing, and since I was an assistant coach in the G League, for sure. But it helps everything. You mentioned the addition of two-way contracts. That was huge for keeping those, those guys that were maybe bubble NBA guys that wanted to opt to go overseas to make a better salary than what they would get in the G League. And so we're able to keep, that every team has two guys. So that's 60 high-level professional basketball players that stay in the States and are able to play in these G League minor league system. And so it's great. It's great for the game. I think it's great for the NBA. And I mean, I love the G League, as a player and a coach, spent, 10 years in the G League. So it's a pretty big part of my life, and it's been cool for me to see that evolution.
Super cool. And being around those types of athletes, like high level athletes, I think it's just funny, Jordan, because when you talk to people that are like the casual fans, they might follow some players through high school and college, but if they don't make it to the NBA, they kind of just assume that player is just done and they're not a high level athlete because they didn't make it to the top.
Right.
But there's still some high level athletes in the G League, and even overseas, there's some very like high level athletes. And it's cool for me to, like, when you watch the TBT, right? The basketball tournament's a pretty common thing now. That's given an opportunity for us to kind of see some of these old players come back. Oh, they're still playing? Yeah, they're still hooping, dude. They're hooping at a high level. Because the NBA doesn't have them on the spotlight anymore, like that, we just forget about them and assume they're not there. But being around that yourself, just being around high level athletes, what's one of the things that you've noticed about high level basketball players that they do to play at such a high level? What's one of the things they do that you could give advice to any younger athletes of, like, hey, even in the G League, man, like, these are high level athletes, and this is a common theme amongst all of them, whether it be their work ethic, it's their mentality, or what's something that stands out to you about them?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, first I'll touch on this is, number one, the level of G League basketball is extremely high. On any given night in the G League, you're going to be seeing NBA first round draft picks. You're going to be seeing guys that have a couple of years of NBA experience under their belt. You might see a guy that has completed his first contract in the NBA and is looking for an opportunity to get back in. And then outside of that, you're going to be seeing guys that were top performers in their college conferences, major college conferences. You're going to see guys that were great players at, like, Kansas, Duke, Iowa State, North Carolina, like all of the big basketball schools. And so the level of play at the G League level, if you're a true basketball fan and you want to see great basketball and you have an opportunity to catch a G League game, it's high level. The guys are extremely athletic. They can put the ball in the basket. It's a really great brand of basketball. So next part of that is what do I see in some of those guys that would be good for young athletes to try and add to their game? Or the number one thing is, I shouldn't say the number one thing, but a very important thing is just the professionalism and the consistency. So one of the big things that I see as the difference between guys that are able to make it, and when I say make it, I mean guys that are able to put a career together in professional basketball, whether it be the NBA or they're able to put a good career together overseas, is they have consistency in their habits and they have a high level of professionalism on and off the court. So they really just handle their business and they approach it in a very consistent way. That to me is one of the biggest differences between guys that are able to stick and guys that aren't able to stick, is just the way that they approach it in their professional habits. And so for me in this role as director of player development, that's one of the things that I'm taking really seriously with the development of these college athletes. Is it's not just about what you do on the court, but it's about how you do it, and it's about what and how you do off the court as well.
See, that's like a perfect transition to what I'm going to talk about next, because being around those athletes at that level, you know what it takes. And now you're at a position where you can influence these guys that still have a chance to compete at that level, some of them, right? And they're going to get to pick your brain on like, okay, he knows what he's talking about. But I did want to touch base on something. You had just said it and I took a note of it. You were talking about like if you're a real fan of basketball, this is why I'm frustrated that Idaho got rid of the Stampede. Obviously, there's reasons for that, but like I was so bummed when we would go to the Stampede games on like a Tuesday, Wednesday night, whenever they were playing in the middle of the week, there was like nobody there, right? So there's a reason that they probably did, but like there were so many times, Jordan, when I'd go to these games, even in like the last 7-8 years, right before they got done. I mean, we had players like Mitch McGarry, who was at Michigan. He was playing for the OKC's affiliate program, like their G League team, whatever. I mean, there were so many awesome hoopers there. So if you're a fan of the sport like I was, like I didn't care how many people were there. I'm like, dude, I'm watching high level basketball right now. Like people don't understand. Like you can go and study that game. Even forget the amount of fans that are there. Just watch the game, and you can just see how people play the game. Their spacing, their understanding of where people are at. You know, just awareness on the court, like shot clock awareness, just everything. It's so high level, and I really miss that. My buddy and I talked about that. We used to love that. We just go get tickets for really cheap. Go watch the games by ourselves, just chill. And yeah, they got rid of the Stampede over here, and it pisses me off. So, yeah, I don't know. Go ahead.
In that same vein, I've got a buddy here in Salt Lake City who was on vacation with his family in San Francisco, and he's a basketball guy. His son and my son play hoop together, and so I checked out the schedule over there, and he was able to go catch a Santa Cruz Warriors, randomly enough, Salt Lake City Stars playoff game, and it was his first time going to a G League game. So he called me after and he's like, man, I had no idea, like everybody knows that the Salt Lake City Stars are here playing in town, but they just don't understand the level of basketball that it is. So like you said, if you're a basketball person and you want to have a great basketball experience, it's a really cost-effective way to see a great basketball game.
That's such a good point. I hope people listen to that, take note. I mean, if you're blessed to have a team around you, like Salt Lake, go check it out, But if you're in a different market, check it out. It's good. It's good for the.
We need to get some ticket royalties for the podcast here today for G League for promoting the G League here.
Hey, speak it into existence, man. You got the connections there. So
I'm in college hoop now, so
yeah. That's all good. That's all good. So speaking of college hoops, you're over here, director of player development. You were talking about how you can now bring some of those things that you learned over here to these athletes. What excites you the most about this opportunity, Jordan, to be at the college level, the Division I level, with a program like BYU, and being able to bring your skill set here? What's the most exciting thing for you?
Yeah, you know what? There's a lot about this opportunity that excites me. Number one is, Brigham Young University. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I think it's really awesome that I have an opportunity to represent this university at this level. There's obviously a lot of visibility around the men's basketball program right now with the hiring of Kevin Young. And so for me, that's one of the exciting things, is that I'm working with guys that I've worked with and kind of come up with in professional basketball. I mean, Kevin Young has been a huge influence in not only my professional, but my college basketball journey as well. In fact, I mean, he's been the biggest influence in my professional development. He was an assistant coach at Utah Valley when I played there. I played on the Flash when he was an assistant coach. He was the head coach of the Flash for a season. He hired me my first coaching opportunity in the G League. And so he's been tremendous as far as the support and the mentorship that he's provided me. But I worked with Coach Voigt in the G League as well. I've worked with Michael Davey, who is now the head strength and conditioning coach at BYU. One of the other guys that I work with really closely is Dr. Manning, who I worked with the Jazz and the Bucks. And so there's a lot as far as staff familiarity and continuity that's really exciting for me about this opportunity, because I'm able to do what I've done in professional basketball with people that I've done it with at the college level. So it's a lot of fun in that respect.
Wow, dude, that is really cool. I didn't know any of that. That'd be it's like getting back together with a bunch of people that have been part of your journey. Like, that's fun. It's like coming back to it. Plus, I think you touched on something that's really important. Just it's like it fits your lifestyle. It fits where you're at, like the whole entire culture and everything with being a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. BYU is a good opportunity for you there just because it fits your lifestyle. But from this athletic side, from the faith perspective, and then just from the leadership perspective of people that have been around you, I think that's so cool, man. I would be excited too. So, and I'm not a BYU guy. In fact, everybody who knows me, they can't believe every time I bring someone on from BYU. I just had Mike Lacey on my show, and he's a former BYU football player. He's running his own podcast. Great dude. I had Jackie McBride on my show. I had a guy named Greg Kite on my show. And like a bunch of BYU people are like, how do you keep getting BYU people? You hate BYU. But I'm like, dude, I got a lot of respect. I had the Whiting family on my show, all the Whitings, Amber, Amari, Trent, Chase. Yeah, dude. So, yeah. Anyway, I got a lot of BYU folk coming on the show, and I'll probably have more. So I always respect you guys. But I think it's super, super cool that it all fits for what you're doing. I want to ask, though, like, what does the director of player development do at BYU? So what are you going to be doing, Jordan, to help the athletes in that regard? It sounds cool, like player development. What does that entail? Is that skills training? Is that life training? What is the director of player development's role?
Yeah, it's really kind of all of the above. So when Coach Young and I first started talking about the possibility of me joining his staff, I mean, we talked about a lot of things, but one thing that he mentioned early on was that he wanted to create this role, this director of player development role in the college space. And really, kind of the essence of the role is to be a unifier with all of the different elements of player development and to kind of unify the resources that we have at BYU and get hyper focused on helping these guys prepare for our season, for life after basketball, for their opportunities at whatever level of professional basketball they're going to play. And so, one of the things that caught a lot of attention in Coach Young's press conference is that he said that he wanted to make BYU the premier place in college basketball to prepare young basketball players to play in the NBA. And so when we started talking about this role, really what he said is he just said, what this is supposed to look like. He introduced me to the resources there at BYU, and he's really let me run with this. And so it's been a lot of fun over the last few weeks to be building out the development team. It ranges from on-court development is absolutely a huge part of it. Coordinating with our coaches to make sure that the guys are getting what they need on the floor, that it fits in with what our expectations are for them in the new system, to make sure that it fits in with what their goals are as far as what they want to do to improve their game on the court. There's the strength and conditioning element, which is a huge piece of what we're doing. Mental performance, nutrition, athletic training, academics. And then, like you said, we are working in kind of a life skills piece that I think is going to be really key for these guys as well. So it's really taking all of those different resources that we have at BYU and turning them into a unified group, into literally a team to just support these student athletes to the best of our ability.
That is so awesome. And one thing you just mentioned there's a couple things you mentioned, but one that stood out to me is the mental performance aspect. I partner in with my buddy Garrett Crone, and we held our second Helix mental performance camp for athletes here in Idaho, in our city that we're in, and for young athletes. And I'm a big proponent of that. Like, the mental performance aspect of athletics is kind of missing. Some people coach on it, some don't, but it's such a massive part. And we've seen a lot of success in that realm as far as the younger athletes, middle school, high school age athletes, kind of taking the bull by the horns when we teach them those things. My buddy, we bring in great speakers. He himself is amazing. And just seeing these athletes gain confidence and understand how to deal with performance anxiety and dealing with all the things that come along with competing at a high level. It's like mental performance is huge. So just hearing you like throw that in there was really cool for me to hear. So I want to ask you this. At BYU, you guys have a lot of resources. You got a lot of opportunities there for these athletes, and it looks like you're putting them all together to unify this whole thing and really help them leverage what you guys have over there. I do want to ask you, what's like the dynamic at BYU as a coach where you're at compared to maybe at UVU where you played at? For those who don't know logistically, to my understanding, UVU is not too far away from where BYU is at. There's always the jokes of like, UVU versus BYU as far as the demographic of people. Like they're the ones who either didn't. BYU says it's the ones who couldn't get in went to UVU, and the ones who are UVU are like, we didn't want to go there because we didn't want to follow the rules. There's a lot of jokes that go around in the church. I'm a member of the church as well, and so I get to hear a lot of that stuff. But UVU, just down the road, we can say. But what's the difference in, I guess, the dynamic there, the resources, and just kind of the level in which you guys will be at? Because like you said, there's a lot of spotlight on the program now with who you got coaching and everything going on over there.
Yeah, I mean, definitely it comes with some expectations without question. So number one is I have to be careful here because, I'm wearing the BYU blue now, and I love the opportunity. I was and am a Wolverine. Love Coach Phillips, and it's been fun to see the growth of UVU basketball over the last, I'm not even going to say how many years it's been since I played there, but it's been a while. They've grown the program. And I have a funny story about that after we get through this. But, man, when you talk about difference in resources, there is definitely a difference. I mean, BYU is competing in the Big 12, largely considered to be the most competitive conference for college basketball right now. And so we do have some really tremendous resources to help the athletes develop, to help these guys really grow their game, and not only the resources of the university, but also the experience and the knowledge of the staff that Coach Young has put together. I really do think that we have as competitive of a coaching staff as anywhere in college basketball. This is definitely a unique staff that they've been able to put together in terms of Brigham Young University basketball staffs. And so I think that goes back again to the resources and the backing that the university has. I mean, they have a tremendous alumni group. The mission of the university is one that, it's not a school or a university where people finish and they want to just move on with life. It becomes a part of who they are. And I've seen that firsthand just in the few weeks that I've been here, how dedicated the alumni are at Brigham Young University. And that's really where, that's the beginning of the resources that we have for the basketball program. In comparison to Utah Valley, Utah Valley has had a different matriculation, not only athletically, but just as a university. I mean, it started off as a technical school, became a junior college. They did make the jump from junior college to Division I, which I was a first graduating class of Utah Valley University after they changed from Utah Valley State College. And so you do have a different level of resources, but it's comparative to the level of competition, right? So Utah Valley is competing in the WAC conference, and they've been extremely competitive. As far as the WAC conference goes, they have a couple of regular season WAC championships under their belt. They have not yet been able to win that WAC tournament championship and get the NCAA bid. But I know that that's going to be coming soon for them as well. They've got a great coach there with Todd Phillips, and he's doing great things. And so definitely a different spectrum when it comes to that. And then the fan heritage here in the area is definitely different. But, for me, I loved my time playing at Utah Valley. I followed the program pretty closely. And so it's been great to see the growth that they've had there as well.
That's actually really cool. A couple of things touch base on my perspective. Utah Valley. So the only person I knew, because I'm a huge Utah Jazz fan, was Ronnie Price. I remember him coming over. I don't know if you guys played in the same era at Utah Valley, but he was like one of my favorite players with the Jazz, just because he was a small dude who was hooping, and he had a lot of fan support in Utah just because he was playing down there. He's hooping in college down there. So yeah, Ronnie Price, good old Ronnie. But like other than that, outside of you, I hadn't actually heard much about UVU until recently. I've interviewed a guy named Ben Kerr, who's a wrestling coach down there. And then I interviewed a recruit that's going down there for wrestling out of Idaho. So just a couple of ties to UVU. But I will say this, as much as like I give people a hard time about BYU, because I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. So when I'm at church, I get to hear it from everybody. I'm a Boise State alum and I'm a Buckeyes fan. So like, it's weird. I have a weird fandom, but
you need to go. Hey, my family's got some Boise State people there. Obviously, you know, my brother Griffin, who you know well, married a Boise State basketball player who was teammates with my sister, who played at Boise State and married a Boise State alum. So we've got some Boise State Broncos in our family.
Oh, that's actually crazy, dude. What a small world. Go Broncos, though. Yeah. See, I give people crap about it, but I will say BYU has a lot of good things. And something that you mentioned there was the alumni. The support that BYU's alumni give that and that just speaks to the belief and like the love that they have for the university after having gone through there. I actually serve in a church calling currently with a former BYU football player. And, he is just awesome. He played in the time, like the era of like Steve Young and them. And so he was an offensive lineman for him at the time. And so just hearing his stories, we go back and forth, we give each other a little bit of a banter, but hearing his stories and his love for the university and just what it's all about. And he still supports it. It speaks to that. Cause like when you were saying that, there's a lot of the alumni rally behind that university, and there's a reason for it. There's got to be a reason for it. It's not just, oh, they're members of the same church. Not all of them are. And it's not because of that. There's a lot of good things that come from that university. So that's really cool. When you look at the schedule of basketball this year, what excites you the most about BYU right now with their basketball program? What's the team that you're looking forward to? I mean, the conference is good. Like, what's the team though? What's something on the schedule that excites you, Jordan?
Yeah, you know what? Great question. And so for me, the last 2 years, I've been able to really watch a lot more college basketball than I have in the past. I mean, when you're working in professional basketball, it doesn't lend a lot of time to just casually turn on the TV and watch a college game here and there. So these last 2 years, I've been able to watch a lot of college basketball. I have a lot of, you know, friends and colleagues who are working in college basketball, so it was fun to follow. The most exciting thing for me is something that's not actually on the schedule for us as of now, but all the years you spend watching the NCAA tournament, and then to think that in, you know, what are we, like 7-8 months away from, I don't know, help me out with the number of months here, but to think that I might be, you know, coaching or on a basketball staff that's going to be competing in the NCAA tournament, that's really something that I didn't have on my radar professionally. And it didn't really hit me until my son, the other day, he asked me, he's like, so, hey, he said, are we going to go to the NCAA tournament games? And I'm like, dude, absolutely. And that was kind of when it became a reality that, like, hey, I'm going to have an opportunity to be a part of March Madness, which is obviously a huge part of American basketball tradition. So that's one thing that I'm really excited for. But in general, just, you know, the Big 12 schedule is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be highly competitive. I'm really looking forward to just diving back into that competitive grind where you get focused on, you know, improving your team week over week and making those adjustments and just getting into that conference competition. I think is going to be a lot of fun for me.
Absolutely, man. That's cool. I would be excited about the March Madness thing too, to be honest with you. I think that's incredible. Shoot, dude, I'd work for BYU just so I could have an opportunity to be there. Oh, that's saying something. So anyway, I want to kind of get your, you know, opinion on this. You know, BYU's basketball program, I mean, there was a fear with the coaching shift that there was going to be a drop off because they were riding high. I mean, like, it was like, whoa, dude, these guys are like competing at a very high level. Coach changes, but it feels like with the coaching change, I almost feel like there was no drop off. There's the excitement still there. Like, oh man, like I can't even, like, there was a lot of people talking that, oh, we can't find someone to replace him. And now it's like, oh wow, we might even be in a better situation just considering who this is. And you know, it seems like the excitement. So my question is this, recruiting. That was I was worried about recruiting at BYU. I'm like, I wonder if they're going to be able to maintain the recruiting, but it sounds like they've done a good job to be able to do that. But recruiting in college basketball, as you're fully aware, is so much different than even when I was playing, like in high school and stuff. I was in 2006 is when I graduated high school. And it's like the recruiting is so much different now. How do you feel? Like, do you feel like BYU is in a good situation though to continue to recruit high level athletes for their school, because it's a unique university. There's a moral code they need to live by, right? Like they live by that. There's certain standards they have to uphold. And some of the players are older, relatively speaking. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are, Jordan, on that. Like, do you feel like the recruiting has been impacted in any way, and are they going to be able to continue to recruit at such a high level?
Yeah, and so short answer before I dig into the details is BYU men's basketball has never been in a better situation to recruit high-level talent. Not only nationally but internationally. You can see from some of the guys that we've signed this offseason, and that again goes back to a few things. Number one, the incredible support that the university has, and specifically for men's basketball right now. And then number two, the impact of Coach Young being hired, coming directly from the NBA, and then the staff that he's assembled. We feel like not only do we have a staff that can develop talent, but we feel like we have a staff that's attractive for the most talented basketball players in the world to come to Brigham Young University and develop their game. And so I think that there's never been a more I think that the time for BYU men's basketball recruiting has never been better than it is right now. In my role specifically, I'm not a recruiting coach. I'm still learning all of the details and rules about that, but my main focus is on the guys that we have on roster and how to develop them. But I have a lot of visibility on what's going on with recruiting. Coach Young's done a really good job. Coach Brandon Dunson is a really high-level assistant coach in college basketball. Hiring him on board here at BYU was a huge step in the right direction there. And then all these other guys that Coach has on staff. One of the things that he says is with our staff that we have right now, we're literally one phone call away from any player that we need to reach in basketball. And so it's a really unique dynamic that they have at BYU to be able to recruit the top level talent in potential college basketball players.
Super awesome. I mean, that's exciting too. I mean, you've assembled a freaking army of a coaching staff, and if the players weren't excited before, which they should have been, they better dang well be now, because the future is looking really bright. Not only for basketball there, but like you said, they've got a staff assembled that's going to help them after that too, like potentially get to the next level. But even if they're not playing next level, you guys have the right, you have the right resources and knowledge to help them with their next transition into life anyway. So it's crazy. Now, I do have a question for you, Jordan. And I asked the same question to Coach Whiting from the women's side. I had Amber Whiting on the show when she first got hired over there. And I was just curious your thoughts on this, because someone who didn't play there, he didn't play at BYU, but BYU does have an honor code. And people in the media, like the people on the outside that don't really understand BYU, they always have negative things to say about it. I'm trying to show them that it's not a negative thing to have an honor code, but they have questions. And I think it comes from a good place, I would hope, of like, well, what if they're not members of the same church, but they're still playing for you guys and they still have to uphold the honor code and they have to still stand by that? And I always try to explain it to them, even though I'm not a BYU guy, is like, yeah, that's the standards that you sign up for when you go to the school. Like, it's a good education. You got a good program. Like, sorry that you have to, that's what you're going to do. Like, and it's not a bad thing. I try to explain to them it's not a bad thing, but I would like to know your perspective from a coaching side of things. Your thoughts on the honor code, and does it make it harder for athletes, or do you feel like it's almost like a positive thing for their development and so forth? Because, part of that is, certain things like substances, drinking and so forth. There's a lot that goes into the honor code, but I feel like it helps protect them not only spiritually, but physically from getting themselves into trouble. But that's just my thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts being in the coaching realm.
Yeah, great question. Obviously, the BYU Honor Code is closely associated with the mission of the university and the mission of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so it is a higher standard than what most colleges and universities nationally would hold their students to and their student athletes. And so for us as a coaching staff, we're not apologetic about it. We embrace the Honor Code. We really do believe that by by introducing the honor code in our recruiting process, in giving those athletes an opportunity to feel that out and think about if that's a commitment that they would be willing to make, we feel like is a strength, because the teams that I worked for in professional basketball, doing draft workouts, free agent evaluations, trade target evaluations, at the very top of the list is, are they a good fit organizationally? And so I can't speak on every team in the NBA, but I do know that the teams that Coach Young and Coach Voigt have worked for have a similar standard, where you need to be able to get guys that are going to be able to not only represent you well on the basketball court, but represent you well professionally around the league, in the community. And so that's a huge part of it. I mentioned before that the off-court development is a really big piece of this. And so we feel like with players that are willing and excited to embrace the honor code, to be able to come and have the opportunity at BYU strengthens us, because it does serve as a little bit of a filtration process to make sure that we're getting guys that are going to fit the culture, and not only fit it, but strengthen the culture and continue to serve the mission of the university. And so we view it as a strength for sure. And you're going to lose out on some guys, but you're also going to find some guys that are really excited about that. And so from my experience, it's been extremely positive. The guys that we have here are not only willing to embrace it, but they're excited to embrace it, because they know that the guys that they're with in the locker room are also having the same level of commitment that they do. And I think that goes a long way when you talk about building team unity and building the culture of the program.
Oh, that's a great point. That last thing you just said right there. That's a great point. All of those are great points, but it does, like, when there's a sense of brotherhood, so to speak, in this regard of like, hey, they're doing the same thing I'm doing. They're holding themselves to that same standard. They're showing some self-discipline, I'm sure, in some aspects. And it's a strength, dude. And I appreciate you sharing that, Jordan, because again, I'm not going to be a dead horse. I'm not a BYU guy, but I have a lot of respect for everybody in BYU. Everyone I've talked to, including yourself, all stand-up people. Like, I freaking love the people. So I'm becoming a closet BYU fan, just from the sense of I've talked to some really good people. And I honestly believe it's a strength. Would I have been able to uphold it? I don't know.
I'll have to check. I'll have to check the rules, but maybe I like that GTG hat that you've got on, man. Flip that around there for a second. Let me see that. See, I think we can work out a trade, man. We got to do a swag trade here. I'll see if I can send over some BYU gear, and you get me that GTG hat.
Listen, man, we can make stuff happen, and I'd be willing to do that. So I appreciate you, brother. Just as we get to the end of the interview, I do want to ask you your favorite experience in the G League. Not necessarily it has to be the G League, because you did also coach in Hong Kong, but like at the professional level, what was your favorite experience that you had? Like, is there a favorite game or a favorite practice or a favorite player that you were around, something that sticks out in your mind that you'll remember and you can tell your kids?
Yeah, I'll share two with you real quickly. So very first game as a head coach in the G League at RGV. So we opened our season with a road. I think I can't remember exactly how many games we had on the road, but very first game of my G League head coaching career, we're at RGV. Always a high level team, super talented. Coach Matt Brazzi, who's now an assistant coach with Philadelphia 76ers, across the sideline, a guy that I had a great relationship with and knew well. So it was a fun opening game. We found ourselves down big. I think we were down by like 26, 27 points kind of midway through the third quarter. And, that's not the way that you envision your first game going as a head coach in the G League. And I felt really confident about our team. We had put together a really strong roster, had a great camp, but throughout that game, we just stuck with it. I told the guys to just keep playing hard, stick with the game plan. And gradually we started to chip away at it. And long story short, we're down by 2 with, I think there might've been under a second. In fact, you might be able to find this clip somewhere and include it, but man, a buzzer beating game winning 3 by Xavier Mumford on a 26, 27 point second half comeback to cap off my very first game as a head coach in the G League. And that was a pretty special way to start it off. So, for for 2.5 quarters, it was like, man, this isn't the way that I saw it happening. And then it ended in a way that I could have never imagined, but was pretty awesome. And it was a nice foundation for our team moving forward through that part of the season. The second thing that's incredibly memorable for me was at the end of that first year, having the opportunity to rejoin the Bucks coaching staff for the last several weeks of the NBA season and then into the playoffs, and having an opportunity to be a part of a coaching staff that played in a Game 7 at TD Garden, in the first round of the playoffs. And that was pretty special. Like the playoff runs are pretty unique experiences. And so those are two things that kind of stand out to me as just special experiences from that time for sure.
Oh, dude, I'm so jealous, man. You've got so many cool experiences, and I'm just a hoop fan. So that stuff is like, that's so cool. Even the stuff you mentioned earlier that you're excited for, March Madness, like little side things that can come about from all these experiences is so sick. Freaking love it, dude.
Well, thank you. It's definitely, there's a lot of fun involved, but you got a pretty sweet gig yourself, man.
No, you're not wrong, man. You're not wrong at all. Super grateful for where I'm at and what I do for sure. But it's just like, man, super dope what you've been able to do. And, I know you're going to have some fun memories coming down the pipeline. But my last question for you, if you could tell anybody, whether it be your players at BYU or any athlete right now, you went through the coaching realm, you've been a player, you've been a coach, took some time off in the tech industry, and now you're back into the coaching side. But basketball kind of seems to be a love of yours, right? It's a part of you. It's been awesome. You've been able to bless lives through that sport. It's been a vehicle for you. What's the biggest life lesson that basketball has taught you, Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, just like you mentioned, I think everybody in basketball and everybody in life has their journey. And I just think that being able to be resilient and stay consistent, stay on the grind, there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. And it's really easy to look at, the successes or the failures of other people and compare your journey with theirs, but just staying focused on what's in front of you and staying focused on your journey and believing in yourself, I think is really a lot of, it has a lot to do with not only basketball, but life. I mean, one of the things that I tell guys is I truly believe that the guys that make it to the very highest levels, whether it be coaches, players, people in business or in life, is how they handle the failures. You look at these guys that are the top level players in the NBA, and every single one of those guys had to go through it. They had times where they could have folded. They had times where injuries could have taken them out, but they just stick with it, and they have that resiliency. And so for me, I think that that's one of the biggest things that you learn from sports that can apply to not only sports, but life.
So good. And then what I would encourage everybody to do is rewind what Jordan just said, and take note of what he just said. If you missed it, rewind it, pause it, whatever, take notes on your device of whatever you're listening, whether it's your phone, whether it's your computer, whatever, take notes on that one. I appreciate
Don't give me too much credit on that, but I think it's a great principle, is just to be resilient. But
well, it goes back to what you said too, like just resilience and consistency. Like, you've coached high level athletes. It's kind of what you said earlier too. Is like, that's one of the things, the way they conduct themselves. It kind of goes back into that. I think it's huge. And there's a big reason that I think, I did start this podcast with the intent of showing people that athletes are more than just dumb jocks, so to speak. It's what my sister used to call us all the time. I think that there's so much more to an athlete. There's so many life lessons you can learn, those skill sets that you can, the resilience, the teamwork, all the stuff that goes into it. It teaches you a lot, and you can translate that over to the next part of your life. So I appreciate you sharing that stuff. And for all those who are listening, I appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you're new to the show, like I said earlier, hit the subscribe button. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps get the show out to more people. And we'll be coming to you guys next week with another interview, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. And stay tuned because we got more coming. Take care. Guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of my show. Now, if you could go and do me a favor, head over to iTunes, give me 5 stars, and leave me a review. It would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your support.